having a daughter and knew if I had a little girl, I wanted to decorate her nursery Tangled-themed. So when she was just a few weeks old, I had professional newborn pictures taken of her, and I had them subtly Tangled-themed in pinks, purples, and yellows. And I even had them take a picture of her with a tiny little pastel, and it's so precious. My intent was to be able to print and display these pictures in her Tangled-themed nursery. The past year has been really hectic, involving a move and lots of new changes, so I never got around to decorating her nursery the way I wanted to. Her first birthday gives me the opportunity to do both. I'm going to throw her a Tangled-themed first birthday party so that I can display all the cute Rapunzel themed pictures I have of her, and then I can repurpose a lot of the DIYs, pictures, and decor that I have left over from her party to finally decorate her nursery the way that I want to. I am starting this party planning quite a bit in advance because I know that I will want to DIY and make a lot of the party decor and elements for her birthday. So I wanted to give myself plenty of time so I'm hopefully not stressed at the last minute and I don't have to cut any corners on the vision that I want to put together. Over the years, I have made myself many Rapunzel inspired dresses, so I thought I could find some fabrics in my fabric stash to work with for this project. So the purple and gold beaded lace was something that I had because it reminded me of Rapunzel and I just had never made anything with it. And then I had the beautiful pinkish purpley crepe, and I thought I could definitely use those materials as a base for designing her Rapunzel dress. I did go to Hobby Lobby and purchase some additional materials, some purple and pink tulle and a purple crepe, just to kind of round out the materials I was using for her dress. This isn't really going to be a tutorial, but I am going to share the process of how I made and designed her dress. So I started by adapting a pattern that I had from Etsy. I split the skirt pattern and bodice pattern so that I could have the color blocking effect that Rapunzel's dress has with the light pinks and purples. And then I cut out each of the pattern piece 2 times so that I had the lace overlay and then the satin fabric underneath. For the skirt, I did 2 layers of tulle overlay, and I did the same for the sleeves as well. And then for the skirt, I just cut a really long rectangle. I think it was maybe 3 times her waist measurement. I wanted to keep the beautiful scalloped edge of the lace, so I just worked with a rectangle and gathered it to fit the skirt. To finish the edges of the skirt right here, I cut out some additional floral applique pieces from the scraps I had left over from cutting out the skirt. And so I just took these different floral pieces and applied them to the edge of the skirt just to give it a really pretty defined edge, and then I hand sewed those on. I really love how the addition of these flowers really finishes the edge and ties everything together. I originally thought about doing a trim or ribbon here, but I just really love how the flowers finish the look. I actually really enjoy hand sewing. I find it to be very relaxing, and I often will watch a movie while I do it. So I made sure to stitch all the way around each flower applique piece so they were securely attached to the skirt. Alright, so here's the bodice, and what I still need to do on the top of the dress is I just have this kind of hand tacked down, and I need to go in with the sewing machine and stitch this detail down. Then it's going to have a button closure, so I need to do buttons and buttonholes on the back. And I don't actually have very many buttons in my stash, but I have these ones, which I think will be perfect. So I'll just do 3 of these flower buttons down the back. And then I also need to attach the sleeves. So I think I'm going to start with the sleeves and see if they're a good size or see if I need to make them a little bit shorter. So these are my sleeves. I'm a little bit worried because the sleeves are bigger than the dress. So I'm wondering if they'll be too big, but I can always shorten them a little bit if needed. So I'm gonna do the sleeves like this, and then I have a ribbon, pink ribbon trim that I want to add on top of the sleeves. When designing the sleeves, I found it was easiest to gather the top of the sleeve and then place the ribbon lengths where I wanted them. I burned the edges of the ribbon to keep them from fraying, which you can do if your ribbon is 100% polyester. So then I tacked the top of the ribbons in place. I had them spaced about 1 inch apart. And then I added an elastic casing into the bottom of the sleeve. And I cut that to a length that fit my daughter's arm. After I had finished the puff sleeve, I tacked the bottom of the ribbons where I liked them, so I had them closer together, and then I stitched a line across them to hold them in place. One of my favorite parts about designing and sewing is when you get to watch your vision starting to come together. So I really love when I start getting to put the sleeves and the bodice and the skirt together and just really seeing how all the elements come together to complete the design. I took a break from sewing to start on my tangled cupcake tower. I saw several variations of this idea on Pinterest and wanted to create my own version to display treats on at my daughter's party. I was able to find almost everything I needed for this project from Walmart, and the rest of the elements I used in the decoration of the tower I already had in my craft stash. I started out by painting this birdhouse I found at Walmart, and I really wanted to have kind of a soft blend between the colors. So I mixed purples, blues, and pinks together while they were wet to give very soft blend to the color of the roof of the tower. So I just kept wet brushing and adding different colors on top of each other just to give it some subtle variation. And then I went in along the edges and blended a darker color upwards, and I went all the way around the tower to complete that. For the base of the tower, I decided on kind of a light, kind of creamy almondy color because I wanted to keep the look of the party very light and bright. I took inspiration from the Tangled restrooms in Walt Disney World when designing this tower. So those have kind of a door with kind of chalk sun drawings all the way around them. So I was kind of creating this illusion that there was a doorway, and then I added a stone arch all the way around. So I didn't entirely record this step, but I just really watered down a light purple acrylic paint so it had more of a watercolor quality, and I wanted it to kind of look chalky, so I did that as the background for my designs. And then I started painting organic suns and swirl shapes inspired by the bathroom. So I did have a reference picture up while I was painting this, and then I just kind of went for it, filling in the designs and spaces until it looked like the reference I was going for. I worked with a variety of different shades of purples and yellows to get the shading of the suns and the floral backgrounds to look just right. This was probably one of my favorite parts of the painting process. I just love when I get to work on the little details. I feel like it really brings the project to life, and this really felt like it transformed it from a birdhouse to a tangled tower. This just felt like something Rapunzel would have on her tower, and it just really brought it all together. Then I decided to add shingles to the top of the tower. When I started, I didn't really have a plan for the rest of the birdhouse. I decided that I wanted to do lanterns coming up
the towers, so I did a kind of very light purple ombre into the cream. It would have been much easier for me to paint this background before I did the floral designs because I had to go back and touch those up. Let's tackle the base of the tower. Originally, I got 2 cans of Pringles that I planned on using for this, but when looking in my pantry because I wanted to see if I could make it a 3-tier, I found these panko breadcrumbs tins, and I just really liked the size and proportion of them better, and I also felt like they were sturdier because unlike the Pringles cans, they had a metal ring at the top and bottom of the cans.
It has been just over a week since I started doing DIY projects for my daughter's Tangled first birthday party, and I wanted to check in and give you an update of what I've gotten done so far and talk about what the projects that I want to do in the upcoming week and see how far I can get. So the main thing that I have been working on over the past week is her Rapunzel birthday dress, and I was actually able to finish this. So I've got some beautiful buttons down the back, there's a snap here, this lace overlay. I really love the details on the bodice here with kind of the ribbon and the gold trim. I love how these colors look together. I think it's just perfect for Rapunzel, and I'm so excited for her to be able to wear this on her birthday. So the next project I've been working on is a Tangled cupcake tower or like treat display. So I got this birdhouse and I painted it with the Tangled suns. I did this design inspired by the Tangled bathrooms in Walt Disney World, and then I did a purple ombre on the back, and I want to add some lanterns to that, so that's going to be the top of the tower. And then I have these 2 cans that I painted to be the base of the tower, and I've decided that I actually want to do a 3rd can a little bit shorter than these ones so that I can do a 3-tiered dessert tray and just have a little bit more room to display treats and desserts. I wanted to talk through the projects that I'm hoping to work on and hopefully finish this week. So for her dress, I want to make a pair of matching like bloomers, diaper cover, just for when she's crawling around and stuff. I think it would be really cute. The next project that I want to start is I have some golden like yarn and tulle, and I want to create some braids that I can use as either table decor or drape on the walls. I'm not entirely sure where I want to incorporate them, but it's a Rapunzel party and I absolutely have to incorporate some beautiful floral braids into my decorations. And then also looking at the list of things that I want to get done this week, I have some tulle left over from her dress because I thought I would make it into a petticoat, a tulle skirt that she would wear underneath the dress, but I don't really think she needs it for that dress. I think it's perfect the way it is. So I was thinking of using the tulle to create kind of a high chair tutu banner that I can have on her high chair for her cake smash. So I want to use the pink and purple tulle that I have left over for that. So the final thing that I am hoping to accomplish this week is get the painting steps done on her Tangled cupcake tower. That is a big list of things, but I am hoping that I can get them all done pretty quickly. Some of them should hopefully be DIYs that come together pretty quickly.
To create the top tier of the tower, I knew I wanted it to be a little bit shorter than the other tiers. I started by using a measuring tape and marking all the way around 3 inches from one side of the edge of the can, and then I used an X-Acto knife to evenly cut off the excess of the tower so that I had a shorter one. I hot glued the lid onto that so it would be more secure. I had some long, skinny scraps of tulle that I had left over from another project I put together for this party. So I braided, I think, 6 strands of those together to create a little braid that I could have wrapping around the tower as it went down. And then I had this moss. The moss ended up being the perfect touch of greenery. In the movie Tangled, Rapunzel's tower is covered with lots of moss and greenery and florals that have grown along the tower over the years. And so I just loved being able to add that into my tower, and I had a lot of fun placing the moss around and then adding little pink and purple flowers. To make gluing the layers together easier, I built up the top and bottom of the cans by adding in some felt, and this just gave me a bigger surface area to add hot glue to and made it a lot sturdier when I glued everything together. I had a guideline for where to glue my tower pieces so they would be perfectly centered, and just ended up hot gluing each of the layers together, so it is not very easy to store. I used a lot of hot glue for this project because I hot glued 2 cardboard circles together for each tier just to make that stronger and more secure, and then I hot glued each tier to the bottom disc below it and the top disc above it. So if you are making this craft project, make sure that you have lots of hot glue on hand. To make this edge look cleaner and more finished, since I had glued the 2 cardboard cake boards together, I added this gold braid trim that I had, and I just went all the way around the edge, and I feel like it gave it a much more polished and professional finish. Plus, I loved the additional little tangled detail of the golden braid. Like many parts of this project, I did not do everything in the most logical order, but in the order that I came up with them. So as the ideas came to me, I put them together. But I should have painted the lanterns onto the tower before assembling all of the tiers, just because it made it a lot more awkward to get around the tower to paint these lanterns on. But it wasn't ultimately too much harder to do. It just would have been a lot easier had I done it beforehand. But I just added different shades and lightnesses and darknesses of lanterns. So I added some lighter lanterns with more watered down paint, and then some darker lanterns just to give some depth and have lanterns look like they were closer away, farther away, and have lanterns that looked brighter and more glowing. And so I just wanted it to look good from every angle, so I kept turning it as I was working to make sure the lanterns looked like they were flowing from one side of the tower to the other. Really love Rapunzel's lanterns, and I loved finding multiple ways to incorporate them to the party. I would say they were one of the main kind of visually theming elements that I used throughout the decor of the party. The last thing I decided to do to finish up this project was to add moss around this top ledge of the tower. I didn't like how you could see the little wooden pedestal feet, so I thought I could kind of hide those with moss and cover them up, and I just feel like it helped the whole kind of tower blend together. All of the tiers kind of appear as one, and I also think it helped disguise the fact that the tower was originally a birdhouse. The final project I will be showing you in this video is creating a centerpiece angled braid. So I found this beautiful shining gold tulle at Hobby Lobby. I believe I purchased 8 yards of it initially, but I ended up going back to purchase an additional yard. So I folded it and then I cut it into thirds so that I had 3 long strips of tulle, and I just measured and divided the length into thirds so that each strip would be equal. And I saved the scraps because I use those to make smaller braids like on the Rapunzel tower and on a few other decor pieces. So then I hooked it to my cabinet and used that to help me find the center of each tulle piece because I wanted them doubled over. And then once I had my 3 pieces doubled over, so I had 6 strands of tulle, I divided them and started braiding. And this was a bit of a long process because there was a lot to work with, so I had to braid 1 or 2 and then stop to untangle everything. And I tried to keep the braid an even tension as I went, but it wasn't always super easy, especially with working with this much length of material. After I'd finished braiding, I went back through and fluffed up the different sections of the braid, just kind of pulling the little tulle pieces out to make it fluffier and not so kind of uniform. I just feel like this helped the braid to look fuller and more natural. I think it just helped the overall braid to look more realistic. Started wrapping these smaller braids around the larger braid. I did realize that I didn't have enough material for these braids to go all the way down the length of the longer braid, so that's what I ended up purchasing an additional yard of tulle for, so that I could make more skinny strips and have more small braids to wrap around my larger braid. Like all of my projects, I loved getting to add the details, so I just went through my boxes of craft supplies and pulled out the flowers that I thought would work best for this, and then I just arranged them along the braid, kind of trying to stagger the flowers so none of the styles of flowers were too close to each other, and kind of balance the dark and light purple and pink colors. But I didn't have too much of a pattern. I just wanted to make sure things were evenly spread out as I went. Now, it would have been easier to hot glue the flowers to the braid, but I just couldn't commit to that. It would have been a little bit messier, and I wouldn't have been able to pull up the flowers and place them differently if I changed my mind. So it did take probably more than twice as long to stitch the flowers down, but it gave me more flexibility if I ever choose to change the flowers that I have displayed on the braid, and it was just cleaner without having hot glue strings everywhere. But if you're doing this project, you definitely don't need to sew the flowers down. I just chose to make the project more complicated than it needed to be. After finishing sewing on the flowers, I started putting on the other finishing touches on the braid. I tied some bows on both ends of the braid to give it a nice, pretty finish. And then I took my smaller braids and started wrapping them around the main braid, situating them so they looked nice in between all of the flowers. And I hand stitched those little braids down so they wouldn't move around.
And that wraps up today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me tackle these DIY projects as I get ready for the big day. In the next video, we will be finishing up a few more DIYs, baking my daughter's smash cake, and putting together a Tangled-themed menu for her party. Plus, I will be attempting my first balloon arch, decorating the space to bring it all together. It's going to be so magical, and I can't wait to show you how months of planning come to life. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the final transformation. And until next time, keep making magic.